In the last video, we took delivery of this new to me totaled 2001 Lexus LX 470, aka Land Cruiser 100 series. We took some stuff apart and evaluated the extent of the damage, and I got some parts ordered for it. Now, while I was waiting on all the parts, I decided to take my family on the RV that you've seen me working on for a road trip for most of the summer. We went from here in South Carolina to Key West to Ohio and back. It was a total blast, but definitely not without its hiccups. If you're interested in following that, there is a whole other channel. I'll leave a link in the description below. But for now, we've got to get this thing apart because we have a lot of new parts to put back on it and see if we can make it whole again before we start really turning this into a full Overland rig. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. We're starting to get this Land Cruiser Lexus LX 470 100 series ripped apart. You saw we got the hood off. We got a lot of the stuff off the front. I was getting ready to pull this fender off and realized that my sweet dear friend Emily, who I bought this from, did a little mud bogging in it, it looks like. So I've got to dig through some mud to get the side step, sort of rock slider thing off of this side so I can get the bottom bolts out of the fender. Now, we've got a whole pile of parts to put on this. I've got the new hood, new fender, everything's been painted, headlights, trim pieces, trans cooler, AC condenser, Ironman bumper, winch, all that stuff that we are going to get back on this truck and have it driving, hopefully, by the end of this video. So, I think it's time to crawl under here. I need to put some face protection on. It's going to be a messy job. Found a full face shield. You guys know how much it sucks to chew on sand afterwards? It's like after you go to the dentist and get a cleaning and there's still that grit and you're, I don't need that today. Oh. So right now I'm just using a pick to find the bolts. Found one. So now that I have the side step out of the way, I can continue with removing the fender, which was also full of dirt and dried up mud. There was also this bracket that I could just not get loose, and I ended up just cutting it off for now. After that, the fender came right off, and I could continue removing the rest of the brackets and components from the front end, including this now two-piece transmission cooler. This is not supposed to be two pieces. Oh gosh. Well, we have trans fluid everywhere. While the AC machine was evacuating the AC system, I went ahead and started removing brackets over from the old trans cooler to the new one. And when you're doing this kind of stuff, it's a good idea to move one part at a time to avoid mixing things up and having to figure that out later. But if you do, I have a good tip for you here in just a little bit. This is the point as a tech where you're like, I can get that out of there. So I've loosened this radiator. I'm gonna push it back and see if I can pull this AC condenser up between the core support and the radiator. I'm optimistic, but I feel like I know how this is gonna play out. And it's not as easy as I think. doesn't help that it's bent. It makes it bigger. So straighten it out. Oh snap. See if I can avoid damaging the radiator at the same time. That'd be great. Oh! Whoops. I think I'm just gonna unbolt the rest of it and avoid further damage. Seems like the responsible thing to do. Come on, baby. It's a boy! Great success. Alright, swap over some brackets. Actually, there's really not many brackets to swap over. With everything out of the way, I used the winch on the 80 series to help pull the core support a bit straighter, and I'm certainly improvising here, but hey, you know, use what you got and be careful doing it. Is this proper use of recovery gear? Alright, so the idea here, I've got the winch pulling on this. I wish it was a little bit of a straighter angle, but as I'm pulling tension this way, I'm going to take this piece of wood and this big hammer, and I'm going to start knocking this in and trying to persuade it back into the place it needs to be. And there's the tension on this will obviously help it sort of pull out. So I've got to straighten out a little spot here, a little spot here. Will it be absolutely perfect? Probably not, but it's going to be close enough. We're able to get this thing lined back up and looking proper. We're getting pretty close. I feel good about it. I feel like that's close enough to like start test fitting stuff, which is way easier than I thought it was going to be. So I don't know. I think we should go ahead and put the fender and the hood on and sort of line some things up. Once I know all that's good, we can put all the AC and trans coolers and all that stuff back together. So some of these parts I ended up having to get brand new. Other stuff like the hood, for example, I got on eBay, and I was lucky enough to get it from the same color car, so that was already painted. This fender I had to get from the dealership, the only place I could find it, and I just had a buddy of mine paint this, and he dropped it off to me yesterday. And it may not be the exact perfect paint match now, but if I need to, I'll take it back to him and he'll start blending some stuff in, but it'll be really close enough to get us going here. Once I felt good about where things were, I went ahead and started tightening things down, keeping an eye on the gaps between the fender and the door, and the fender and the hood as well. Dude, this hood is, well, it's dirty, but it's not the same color. I mean, it's the same color. It's the right color. It just isn't a good match. Okay, so we're off a good bit here. Man, this thing's... This thing's got to come a lot further than I thought. Let me look at this. Look how much further the hood latch has to come forward to latch. It's got to go like 3/4 of an inch forward. You see that? It's like missing the... Okay. Back to the winch. Okay. Here we go. Ooh. So sketchy. It's like not a lot of pressure, but it moves it a lot. For a second. That would have given me so much more room to pull that AC condenser out of here. Oh yeah. Now we're cooking with peanut oil. Ooh. Alright, I don't think I'm gonna do any more. There. I didn't like how it's pulling down. I don't want to do too much of that. Yeah. I think so far, for where we are in the project, that this is pretty acceptable for right now. I don't think I can hammer that whole thing in. I think if anything, I just need to adjust the hood hinges, maybe a 1/16 to the driver's side and just even out that gap. But otherwise, like, it's straight with it. Everything lines up. I'm pretty stinking happy with it. The hood color is way off. So I'm gonna have to look at polishing it or taking it back to my buddy, have him repaint the rest of this thing and blend it all together. But for now, we've got some mechanical stuff put back together. AC condenser, trans cooler, lights, grill, and then we've got to add the winch and then the bumper. And this thing will be back to drivable. Come here, let me show you guys something. This thing has 2 horns, and I was trying to figure out which one goes where. And in the car world, at least for me in the car world, there's something we like to refer to as a memory mark, and it's just kind of a mark of where something was, some sort of indicator as to what goes there. So if you look over here, there is a grease stain of some sort that is coming across and lines up absolutely perfectly. So I was like, oh, well, this horn goes here, therefore the other one goes the other place. But the memory marks are something that come in handy quite often. Another pro tip for you is to never toss out the old parts until you're done with the project. There's almost always some old clips or brackets or something that you don't realize you're going to need, and you'll have to swap over from the old parts. So just keep that in mind when you're working on something like this. Okay, so now that we've got all of the front end back together, AC's charged up, trans fluid is filled up, we've cranked it up and tested it, everything seems to be working fine. We're ready to move on to the Ironman bumper and the winch and some of that aftermarket stuff. Now we still have a little bit of a concern down here where this is bumper, the original bumper reinforcement mounted in. This thing's kind of smashed in a little bit. I think the winch plate that holds the bumper is going to slide over it, but there's a good chance we're gonna have to cut this up and modify it and kind of work around that thing. So we still have some problem solving to do, but hopefully, since I have read the instructions, that this goes smooth and it kind of just starts moving along. When we get this thing done, take it for a drive. area of the fender will be slightly visible through the new bumper, so I'm going to go ahead and paint it black to make it sort of disappear. I just scuffed it up with a red Scotch-Brite pad and masked it off with some of the plastic that already has tape applied to it. It makes it so much easier and faster to mask off small stuff like this. And then we can continue with installing the bumper and mounting the winch controller. All right, guys, we are wrapping up here with sort of phase one of this budget Overland build. And I asked you guys in the previous video if you wanted to go more high budget or low budget with this Overland build, and everyone spoke, and the votes were pretty unanimous that it was going to be a budget build. So I've got a lot of parts here. We have a roof rack for it, rooftop tent, full kitchen system. You'll be interested to see that one. Suspension, all that kind of stuff, and most of it's Ironman 4x4, which isn't the most expensive, but not the cheapest either, because I did want this thing to be safe and reliable, obviously. So we're going to do a lot of stuff to build out the back of it ourselves, and then use an interesting kitchen system that I don't see used often, and it was not very expensive. So anyways, if you want to see more of this build, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified when those videos comes out. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.